Yes, hey everybody, welcome to the live stream. I appreciate everyone tuning in. We're going to go over the 2 meal a day diet, the TMAD diet. I've been doing this diet maybe for about 10, 12 years. I know the title of it is Why I Only Eat 2 Meals a Day, but we're going to cover exactly what the 2 meal a day diet is. We'll go over all the pros and cons. But if you're new to me, my name is 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏. I've been a fitness trainer and gym owner for over like 30 years. I opened up my first gym in 1989, and I've helped thousands of people lose weight, put on muscle and just get into amazing shape. And I see we got a bunch of people in the room, a couple of regulars. We got Harriet 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏, of course. Thank you, Harry, for showing up. We also have 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 with a great good morning. Good morning, Rob. How's everything going? We got Krill. Krill has been one of my biggest followers. I really appreciate Krill watching all my videos, always leaving a great comment. Last stream was great. I really appreciate it. I know it was a long one, but it was kind of good. It's interesting because 2 weeks ago, I did a live stream mapping out an 8-week intermittent fasting, like muscle building program where I was going to increase the intensity. It's interesting, Krill, because I already hurt myself. I was going to talk about it later on at the end of the broadcast. I already pushed myself too hard. I've had tendonitis in my elbows years ago, and it kind of creeped up. I just pushed and increased the weight a little too much, but we're going to talk about that and more. And Danny's Danny from Ireland. That's great, Danny. I appreciate you showing up. This is great. We got a lot of people in the room today. Brian 𝙒𝘼𝙏𝘏, one of my dearest friends who I miss seeing him. I haven't seen him in such a long time. I'm so excited that he actually tuned in. It's wonderful to have him here, which is amazing. I know Harriet and Rob would be so excited to see that he's here too. We got Rosie with the rose. Of course, Rosie, I appreciate you showing up. I know we got people from all over the world. I know Danny and Krill are from all different parts of the world. So whenever you leave a comment, if you can, if I don't know you, let me know where you're from. It's really exciting. Jimmy, everyone's here. Good morning. This is wonderful. And Patel from the UK, fantastic. I really appreciate everyone being here. This is great. We got a great showing right out of the gate, which is really exciting. And also, just give me a thumbs up. I think Brian notified me that I think I left my mic on during that countdown. So just let me know. To me, everything looks good on my end. The picture looks good. I think the sound is good. If I start clipping with the sound, I can turn down the mic. Just let me know. But let's first go over exactly what I'm going to cover in this presentation. First, we'll go over real simply what is the TMAD diet, what is it all about, what are the pros and cons. I got a bunch of slides, and I'm going to give you exact explanations of the meal plan with pictures of the food, pictures of the meals. Then we'll go over what's the best way to do the 2 meal a day diet based on your goals. And if you're not familiar with it, 2 meal a day diet is called TMAD, 2 meal a day. So I may be referencing and saying TMAD a lot, but I just mean 2 meals a day. So we'll go over what I think is the best way to do it if you're looking to burn body fat, if you're looking to maintain an optimal weight, or if you're looking to put on some muscle. So I have a whole bunch of different plans for you. Then we'll go over what is the best schedule to follow when you're doing it, based on when you're working out, how much protein you should eat, how many calories you should take, and then we're going to map out an exact diet plan for you to follow, which is great. So Rosie's giving me a thumbs up. So I'm assuming that the sound is good and the picture is good. And obviously, if you have any questions, please, ask all your questions. I'm going to hang around here for well over an hour. We'll stay on as long as possible. We'll get everything done. Okay, so let's quickly and simply go over what is the TMAD diet. And it's just pretty much what it sounds. You're pretty much only eating 2 meals a day. Some people would call this intermittent fasting, or some people will call it time-restricted eating. The big difference is if you do it intermittently, like say you only eat 2 meals a day, like once, twice, 3 times a week, that would be intermittent fasting. But if you only eat 2 meals a day every single day, I would call that time-restricted eating. And there's all different ways of doing it. Danny too says the sound is perfect. That's great. Harry also says coming in great. Thanks guys, I really appreciate it. Now there's a number of different ways you can do it. Like the obvious way is you skip breakfast and dinner. It's like you can pretty much eat breakfast and you can eat lunch and skip dinner. And there are pros and cons to all this, which we're going to cover in great detail. You can pretty much have breakfast and have dinner. That means you have breakfast, dinner, you skip lunch. I think that's the least, effective way you're doing it, but it still can work. You can also just have lunch and dinner. And that's typically what I personally do. Even though we're going to talk about there is some science indicating that you're probably best off eating breakfast and lunch as opposed They're doing lunch and dinner for multiple reasons, for protein synthesis, for maintaining muscle mass, and also for your circadian rhythm, which we're going to explain in great detail. But pretty much any of these formulas really can work. And 𝙒𝘏𝑚AD, I also like 𝙒𝘏𝑚AD standing for 1 meal a day with a 2-hour eating window. I kind of like that approach too for TMAD, meaning that instead of just eating one meal, you have like 1.5 meals. And I was also define that as eating 2 meals a day. Now let me pop this up again. Okay, and I kind of explained what intermittent fasting is compared to time restricted eating. So they both can be used in TMAD. Let's see what else. Let's see what Krill's got here. Sorry for the injury, Mike. Let me know. Let me guess. Free weights. Yeah, I just pushed too hard. I just increased the weights and the intensity. I was a little over anxious, and I kind of have a couple old injuries that kind of popped up, which is kind of interesting. But I'm going to talk about it from Finland. That's great, Krill, from Finland. I'm going to talk about it in great detail at the end of the video, all my mistakes that I'm making. Okay, let's go over the pros and cons. And I got a couple of different camera angles here. Let's go over some of the pros and cons of doing this 2 meal a day diet. Well, I kind of like the other. I like this one better. Okay. I think one of the biggest advantages of only eating 2 meals a day is that it's just so easy to do. It's one of the easiest ways, in my opinion, to reduce calories without necessarily counting calories. And compliance is such a key thing when it comes to losing weight and maintaining an optimal weight. Like if I just tell someone, a client comes to me and say, just start eating 2 meals a day. I don't even want to define it or say anything else. Just eat 2 meals a day. If you're eating 4, 5, 6 meals a day like a typical person does, and you go down to 2 meals a day, you're automatically going to be in a calorie deficit without counting calories, without trying. And it can be a little counterintuitive. Some people might think, oh my God, if I'm only eating 2 meals a day, I'm going to gorge myself, I'm going to stuff myself. But the research doesn't show that. When you look at the research, when they're studying this time-restricted eating and intermittent fasting, I would say 90% of the people who restrict themselves to a smaller eating window, say only eating 2 meals a day, will automatically consume less calories. So I think it's one of the easiest ways to control your weight, okay? It's also a good way to take in an adequate amount of protein. I find some of the biggest mistakes people make, especially when they're doing the 𝙒𝘏𝑚AD diet, the 1 meal a day diet, or even any type of 16-8 or 18-6. These are the popular intermittent fasting strategies. 16-8 just means that you're fasting for 16 hours, taking in all your calories with an 8-hour eating window, or 18-6, you fast for 18 hours, taking all your calories within a 6-hour eating window, which is my favorite. Most people, I feel, sometimes don't eat enough and don't take in enough protein, especially if they just have like a snack and then maybe one meal. But with 2 solid meals a day, I feel like you can take in an adequate amount of protein. I'm going to define what I mean by that later in the presentation. Okay, and you also get all the benefits of being in a fasted state when you only eat 2 meals a day, which is going to increase your insulin sensitivity. If you've been following me on YouTube, I'm such a big believer in increasing your insulin sensitivity. If you've been overweight, unfortunately, for a long period of time, what happens is you become insulin resistant, and the cells in your body just stop responding to insulin, and that's when you run into all the problems: the metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. So by giving yourself a smaller eating window and only eating 2 meals a day, you're in a fasted state for extended periods of time, which keeps your blood sugar really low, and it makes insulin work better when you do eat food. So it's a great way to increase your insulin sensitivity. Let's see what Brent. Hey, Brent from Florida. Oh, thanks, Brent. Thanks for showing up. And James is here too. Oh, fantastic. All my regulars are here. I really appreciate it. Just walked in the door for my 1 hour. Oh, that's great, James. Yeah, I'm going to do I know James does what I do. He does like a fasted walk in the morning. After this presentation, I'm going to do my 2-hour fasted walk right along the Hudson River, which I can't wait to do. I haven't eaten today. All I'm having is my, my black coffee, which I typically do. And if you're not familiar with that, what I mean by being in a fasted state, I should have covered this like in the beginning, is you're pretty much just not taking any calories, but you're allowed to take in no calorie liquid. So for example, I'll drink black coffee, I'll drink green tea, I drink herbal tea, I drink a lot of Pellegrino water. Maybe a cup of black coffee had 1 or 2 calories. Something like that I think is okay. But you're pretty much going to drink a lot of no calorie liquids when you're in a fasted state. That's what I mean by being in a fasted state. And I also think it's an excellent long-term strategy, only eating 2 meals a day. Because another problem I think people have is where they get really involved in this fasting is that they restrict calories for too long for an extended period of time. And like I talked about in the past, what happens is it's called metabolic adaptation. When you restrict calories for like months on end, your metabolism is going to slow down. And it's a good thing in a way because you're a smaller person, you're losing weight. But you reach a point where you can over-exaggerate that metabolic adaptation if you're consistently in a calorie deficit. Like, for example, there's been multiple studies done on, remember the Biggest Loser show, that crazy show, where people, most of the people in that show all gained the weight back. And when they gained the weight back, the metabolism was like 400 or 500 calories slower from restricted calories too aggressively for too long. So I find like the 2 meals a day is almost ideal. You can use it to be in a calorie deficit, which I'm going to give you an exact plan. You can also use it to stay in maintenance calories because you can eat 2 good meals a day, and you can also use it to put on muscle and go into a positive energy balance. So I feel like it gives you so much flexibility, 2 meals a day. And that's been my cornerstone diet. I'm pretty much an 18-6er. I like to fast for 18 hours most days, taking all my calories within a 6-hour eating window with 2 meals. But when I'm looking to put on muscle, like I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to talk about in this presentation too, I may add just a half meal, like a protein shake. But we're going to talk about that as we go. And like the other thing, right, like I said, very flexible. Let's go over some of the cons too for some people. First of all, no one should be doing these fasting strategies if you're pregnant, right? Because it's just too taxing alone on your body. If you're a kid, if you're not an adult, if you ever had an eating disorder, don't mess around with this fasting type stuff, okay? And I also think it's also not good if you're a high-level athlete. Like my son, he's a collegiate runner. He's running 70, 80 miles a week. He's 22 years old, so I feel he's old enough to fast. But when you're working out like that, when you're running 70, 80 miles a week, you're probably not going to get all your vitamins and minerals and nutrients in only 2 meals a day. It's really difficult. But like I said, the number 2, but for most people, you can take in enough protein, you can take in enough vitamins and minerals and nutrients in 2 meals. And that's why I think it's a great long-term strategy. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. And any questions, let me know. All right, this is where it gets kind of fun. First, before I map out like an exact schedule on when you should be eating the 2 meals a day, I want to talk about circadian rhythm. So your circadian rhythm is your own like internal clock. Like everyone has their own 24-hour internal clock. And your circadian rhythm pretty much regulates just about everything. It releases different hormones. It controls your metabolism. It controls like your digestion, all things like that. And how it's pretty much regulated is determined mostly by light. Like when you wake up in the morning, it's really good to go outside and have sunlight hit your eyes. You want the sunlight. The more sunlight you get during the day, the better you're going to sleep at night. But it also turns on different processes and metabolisms. And also a big factor for controlling circadian rhythm is the time of day in which you eat, which is really important. I'm going to go into that in more detail. And it seems like what the new research is showing is that you're probably better off taking in some protein earlier in the day as opposed to later in the day when it comes to increasing your muscle mass, maintaining your muscle mass, and turning on these circadian markers, these genes and these hormones are working when you eat earlier in the day. And I've experimented with this. Like for many, many years, me and my wife started intermittent fasting 10, 12 years ago. I've tried every possible schedule. And I tried the schedule where you wake up, you wait an hour, and you eat breakfast, then you have a late lunch and you skip dinner. Even though that's probably the best way to do it, it just doesn't work for me. I like to eat dinner at night with my wife. When my kids are home, I like to eat dinner at night with my kids. So it just doesn't work for me. But there's a little bit of a hack, which we're going to talk about. But if you can do that schedule, like wake up in the morning, you want to wait an hour though. You never want to eat as soon as you wake up. And I learned that from Dr. Panda. He wrote the book, The Circadian Code. It's kind of interesting. He talks about how when you wake up in the morning, melatonin is the hormone that helps you sleep. It's still somewhat elevated when you wake up in the morning. Even though cortisol is the stress hormone, which helps you wake up too, starts getting elevated. But as soon as you wake up, there's kind of like a fight between melatonin and cortisol within your body. And he'll tell you that, Dr. Panda will say, your pancreas is is kind of still asleep for releasing insulin. So he thinks everyone should wait at least an hour before eating, just to get the pancreas moving and get your body working again, before you have a meal. So if you could like wake up in the morning, wait an hour, have a late breakfast, and then have like a late lunch, that's probably the best schedule. But like I said, it doesn't work for me, and I still get tremendous benefit. We're going to talk about all that, but this is what the research is showing, that it's probably not a good idea to eat a big meal late at night. And the reason is that it raises your C-reactive protein, that's the inflammatory marker, your A1C, that's your hemoglobin number. It's that 3-month number you get from your blood work, which determines how well your body is processing carbohydrates. Now you want that to be below, I think, 5.7. I would prefer it to be below about maybe 5.1. You also have higher insulin levels when you eat later at night. Your body doesn't process glucose as well, your LDLs, your HDL. It's healthier for you to take in calories during the active hours of the day. So for example, even when I'm skipping breakfast, say I break my fast around 1, 2 o'clock, I'll still try to be done with dinner before 8 in the evening. Because the key rule to all the schedules we're going to be talking about today is 2 things. And this is like really important, I would say, is don't eat 1 hour after waking up, and you want to eat a minimum, and you don't want to eat a minimum of 2 hours before you go to bed. 3 hours would be even better. So all the exact schedules we're going to be talking about is going to incorporate that key rule. And a big part of why that has to do with your circadian rhythm. Like the body just releases these hormones and does all these different things based on your own 24-hour clock. Okay, so let's skip to the next thing. I think Krill's got some good questions here. Let's see. Okay, I'm sending a question but don't have to answer now. Okay, I know that during the hypertrophy program you'd rather eat more than maintenance during fat loss. Say you're walking or doing, okay, let me see, eat more than maintenance during fat loss, say. And then you have another question. Let me see what this is. Okay, machines you eat less than maintenance. How about strength training that I'm on now? I have 2 weeks left and I'll join your hypertrophy. Have to find a place where, so I think you're trying to ask like when it comes to maintenance, right? Like maintenance calories. I would look at it like this. I do think even with maintenance calories, you can put on muscle and decrease body fat. I did a whole live stream on that a couple of months ago. It's a little bit harder because it's always easier when you're in a positive energy balance and you're not trying to lose body fat at the same time. But I think at maintenance calories, you can definitely put on muscle and lose body fat at the same time. The key is to keep your protein up. My formula is 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight. You can even go higher, maybe go 1 gram of protein per pound of actual body weight, when you're looking to put on muscle. But I wouldn't necessarily be in a calorie deficit, Krill. That's the key thing. Don't be in a calorie deficit. And I know it's hard to say, like, what is your maintenance calories? I have a whole slide on that in this presentation. You got to experiment. A guy like you who's been working out his whole life, and I know you're in your 40s, you got a lot of experience, you're going to have to experiment and figure out what is maintenance calories. And unfortunately, it's always going to change because when you get smaller, your maintenance calories are less. And then, how much type of workout you're doing. But I wouldn't be in a calorie deficit. I would say that's the key takeaway. I hope that answered your question. Listen, okay. Any advice on people like me that have digestive issues when eating vegetables? Do we necessarily need to eat them? It's really interesting because I just watched the whole debate. Another guy I followed, I talk about him all the time, Paul Saladino. He wrote the Carnivore Code. And he was debating, he was on Mark Bell's YouTube channel. Mark Bell's the big power lifter. He's also an inventor. He's got a whole bunch of inventions like powerlifting, like equipment type inventions. And he had on Paul Saladino. And he had on, I forget the guy's name. He's another famous nutrition fitness guy. He's a PhD. He certifies trainers on nutrition. And they were debating whether you need fiber in your diet. And Paul Saladino was pulling up studies saying that you really don't. There's all these myths that, for example, when people who are constipated, who actually have fiber, makes them more constipated, and then maybe eating no fiber can get rid of constipation. It was kind of an interesting debate. And Paul Saladino will say, he doesn't think you necessarily need fiber in the diet. I personally think you do. I do really well with fiber. I think it's good for satiety. It fills you up. I think it's good for your digestive tract system. If I had to debate Paul Saladino, he's an MD. I'm sure he would blow me away when it comes to debating it. But it's interesting. The other panelist who was debating him referenced that all the studies that Paul Saladino pointed out about fiber were very short-term studies. They were like 2 weeks long. I think long-term, yes, I do think you need fiber within your diet, but it doesn't necessarily have to be vegetables. I mean, there's different ways to get fiber. I mean, you can, if your vegetables upset you, try some fruit. Like a strawberry is almost like a free fruit, meaning that there's so much fiber in a strawberry, the net carbs are almost zero. And what I mean by net carbs is that you take total carbs, you minus fiber. So say like, I'm going to make this up, but say a bowl of strawberries has like 20 grams of carbs in it, but has like 18 grams of fiber. You know, 2 net grams of fiber. There's different ways of getting fiber. You can even take a little inulin. You can try something like that. But I understand, and it may not necessarily be the fiber in the vegetables that's causing the issue. Like, for example, if you read any of Dr. Gundry's books, you know, Dr. Stephen Gundry, The Plant Paradox, he might say that it's not the fiber. He may say it could be the lectins in the type of vegetables that you're eating. So you have to experiment. That's why, in my opinion, why I think the carnivore diet is kind of a fun thing to try and can be effective is because it's such an incredible elimination diet. Like if you have autoimmune, you have digestive issues, when you go on a carnivore diet and you're only eating animal protein, you're only eating chicken, fish, and meat, you're eliminating so many of those lectins, so many of those so many of those other things that could potentially be upsetting your stomach. So it's kind of like a nice baseline. So you might want to just, you know, try one vegetable at a time. Maybe broccoli you can process, but another vegetable you can't. But I would stick to fruits. And maybe you can even add a little bit of inulin or even like a Metamucil type thing and experiment with it. But I'm sorry about that. But we'll talk more about it. Let's see what Krill's got. Okay. I made a question difficult. Should I eat more when doing a 3-rep program? You know, I wouldn't. I would say it's all about, Krill, it's all about intensity. If you're working hard and your goal is either to get stronger or get, you know, more muscular hypertrophy, you probably do want to be in a positive energy balance. And we're talking only a few hundred calories. You probably want to eat a few hundred calories more. Like what I do when I talked about the other week, instead of me doing like a TMAD diet, eating 2 meals a day when I was in maintenance calories, which for me would be maybe 10 times my body weight plus 500 calories. You know, say I'm at maintenance calories, for me, it's say 2,200 calories. What I did when I want to put on muscle and increase my strength and, like, you know, work harder in the gym, I just added 1 protein shake, right? So I added like maybe another 25, 30 grams of protein. You know my formula. I like celery juice because it's high in potassium, low in carbohydrates. Maybe I threw some berries in there. So I only increased my calories by maybe 300 calories, prioritizing protein. And that's all you need. You know, you just want to be in that slight positive energy balance with protein. And I think that'll get the job for you done. Even just 30 extra grams of protein can do it. Even a couple hundred calories, you know? Like 3 by yeah, no, I think it's a great program, but I don't. It all depends on how hard you're working. If you're doing that 3 by 3 and you're kind of pushing it and you're trying to get stronger and you want to get, I would just be in a positive energy balance. Maybe add 1 more small meal. So it'd be like doing TMAD with a protein shake, right? Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, so let's go over like an exact schedule that you can follow doing the TMAD. If your main goal, thanks, Krill. No, I appreciate it. No, I love the questions. This is great. Let's go over an exact 2 meal a day schedule you can follow if your main goal is to lose fat. And we're also going to do this in a couple of other slides if you want to maintain your weight or you want to put on muscle like Krill's looking to do. Okay. The main thing is you do want to keep an eye on calories. Like, I'm not one of these intermittent fasting guys, even though I got like 100 videos on my channel about intermittent fasting who says that calories don't count. In my opinion, 100% calories do count. But I think one of the biggest advantage of intermittent fasting, of all these different strategies, is you're automatically in a calorie deficit without trying. So and it's easy to comply to. That's a big thing. But you do want to keep an eye on calories for sure. But I'm going to break it down further. Okay. The next big advantage is you do want to be in a fasted state for an extended period of time. So when it comes to burning fat, I wouldn't do the 2 meal a day diet where you're eating breakfast and then you're eating dinner. Because the fasting period is going to be much more limited. I would much rather you do something like a 16-8 or an 18-6. Like I said, when you fast 16 hours or you fast 18 hours, where you either eat breakfast and late lunch, or you eat lunch and dinner, so you can be in a fasted state for 16 or 18 hours. And that's a big advantage. That's going to keep insulin levels low. Just think, when you're fasting, what are you doing? You're burning stored energy. You're burning stored fat. You're burning stored carbohydrates. Right? Plus, when you're in a fasted state and you're eating like my type of diet, which is a relatively low carb, whole natural food diet, you're going to be dipping into fat stores. Like when you're in that fasted state and insulin levels are low, you're creating an environment for your body for fat to be released into the bloodstream. If you're constantly eating these multiple meals a day, even if it's good food, and you're constantly spiking insulin, when insulin is elevated, you're locking the door to fat cells, and you're not letting the fat get out to be burnt. So if you want to burn fat eating 2 meals a day, try to stay in a fasted state for 16 to 18 hours. Either eat a late, like a little bit of a late breakfast, wait that hour, then have a late lunch, or do lunch and dinner. When it comes to maintenance and maybe increasing your muscle mass, I don't think it's as important. But when it comes to fat loss, I would do it like that. And just think, once again, you also want to prioritize protein in your diet, no doubt about it. It's key. Protein is the most satisfying, right? It has the highest thermic effect of all the macronutrients. So the 3 macronutrients are protein, fats, and carbs. Some people consider alcohol to be a 4th. Like when you eat 100 calories of protein, you're going to burn up 25-30% of those calories just digesting and processing the protein. So the net calories of protein is so much less. Plus it's just so satisfying. It's so nutrient dense. There's more vitamins, minerals, and nutrients in a steak and chicken and salmon and shellfish, even eggs. Eggs is like the perfect food than any other carb or even fat you can possibly eat. So prioritize protein. And I'll break my formula down, but my formula is that 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight is pretty ideal for most people. So for example, if you're 150 pounds, and let's just say you're 20% body fat, which gives you 120 pounds of like lean mass, times that by 0.9, that's about 108 grams of protein. I think you can even go a little bit higher. Right, a general rule is that every 4 ounces of chicken, fish, and meat is 25 grams of protein. So if you're like a 150-pound guy or gal and you want to lower your body fat, you want to, eliminate processed foods, eat a whole natural food diet, relatively low in carbohydrates, and make sure you're taking in 2 like 8-ounce servings of protein with your 2 meals, and you're going to do great. And you can also go either way, with these strategies. You can do it intermittently, like you can do it intermittent fasting. You do it. Let's say you want to be in a calorie deficit just 4 days a week. So you can eat 2 meals a day, 4 days a week. Those are your calorie deficit days. And it's almost good because then on the days when you're back eating 3 meals a day, you go to maintenance calories, say. And it's an ideal way to cycle your calories. That's a great way to do it. Or you can do it every single day, which is called time-restricted eating, which I think is totally fine as well. So you got a couple different ways, but this is my favorite 2 meal a day schedule if you're looking to burn body fat. And you'll see at the end of this whole thing, I'm going to show you exact meals, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to like structuring a meal and how to like keep an eye on your portion control and all that. So, but let's give you if you have any questions, guys, let me know. And I also want to talk about this though before we go. I get so many questions about this. I even pulled up a couple of studies before we go to a schedule that's good for maintaining or a schedule that's good for like putting on muscle. Okay, I get this question every single week. Like, how much protein can you utilize per meal? Because I'm in that camp that I think it's more important for you to focus on how much total protein you're taking in within the day as opposed to each meal. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Okay, for example, this is what the research is showing. The research is somewhat mixed. There's so many factors that determine how much protein you're going to process or utilize per meal. See, unfortunately, you can't store protein. You eat the protein. If you don't use it, you don't synthesize, you don't rebuild your body. It can be used as energy. You can burn it up a little bit. Some of it can come out of your stool if you're eating like an insane amount of protein. But some people would argue with me and say, oh, no, Mike, you can store protein in muscle, which you can, right? That's where the amino acids are stored. So, for example, if you're eating like an incomplete protein, okay, I'm jumping ahead. Let me go over what amino acids are. I mean, there are 20 amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, right? So you put these amino acids together, the body can make, synthesize muscle and rebuild yourself. And you get these proteins. Some are essential, which you have to get them from the foods you eat. There are non-essential amino acids. Some are non-essential. That means your body can make them on their own. So, for example, if you're eating an incomplete protein, let's say you're eating like you're a vegetarian and you're eating vegetables that don't have all the essential amino acids, your body can literally go to the amino acid pool, could like pull amino acids from muscle to make that complete protein to use it somewhere else. So that's why it's so important to eat complete proteins. It's really important. But the big factors to determine how much you utilize are, first of all, how active you are. If you're lifting weights constantly and you're an athlete, like my son who's running 80 miles a week, he can utilize more protein in a meal than someone else can. Right? How old you are is a big factor. The older you get, the more protein you need, the more protein you can utilize. How quickly the protein is digested is a big factor. So, for example, if you're drinking like a whey protein, which is a quick digestible protein, compared to eating a steak, the digestive process of the steak is going to be much slower. So you can probably utilize that protein for a greater period of time. There's so many other factors. Also, how big you are. You're a 250-pound guy or like a 100-pound gal, just think the guy's going to need more protein, right? But this is what the studies are showing. The studies are somewhat mixed, in my opinion. A lot of studies do show, though, that yes, when it comes to protein synthesis, like just producing more muscle, putting on muscle, some of the studies have shown that you can only process 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. And I've even seen studies that brings that up to 60 grams, 50, 60 grams if you're a bigger guy or gal, and you're working out, you're lifting weights all the time. But there were also some intermittent fasting studies. I'll blow them up. They're both down here, which talks about that if you're following, say, an intermittent fasting, that's this particular study. This study shows that if you're intermittent fasting and you're fasting for 20 hours, so you're doing a 24, that means you're taking in all your calories within a 4-hour eating window, and you consume 100 grams of protein in that 4-hour eating window, you're going to do just as well for maintaining muscle mass, for putting on muscle, for someone who's eating those like 30 grams of protein 4, 5, 6 times a day. So that study showed no difference. And then this study, this was a really interesting study. This was an OMAD study. That means they compared people who were eating, 3 meals a day to people who were eating just 1 meal a day, where they took in 86 grams of protein, and they did just as well when it came to maintaining muscle mass and putting on muscle mass. So, there's so many different factors. That's why, in my opinion, sometimes I've done videos on the OMAD diet recommending people, taking 100 grams of protein if you're only eating 1 meal a day, because it's more important to make sure you're getting enough protein than to be deficient in protein. And I kind of think these kind of studies back it up. And there are more studies like this. So in my opinion, it's more important to just make sure you're eating enough protein. And don't be too concerned about how much protein you're taking in within those 2 meals. So you can easily, if you're a big guy or gal, you can go 75 grams of protein twice. Eat 150 grams of protein. If you're that 150-pound woman, a 20% body fat, have 2 8-ounce servings of protein. Let's see what James got here. Have you ever listened to Dr. Gabriel Lyon and the importance of protein? No, I haven't, but after this, James, I will definitely check it out. I'm assuming this doctor is very pro protein, and I will definitely check it out. I would love to check it out. I like people who think like I do, so we think alike, which is great. Okay, let's go over to the next slide. So I made my point on how important it is to make sure you're just getting in enough protein, and don't be over don't. People comment all the time, because I'll recommend someone eating 80 grams of protein a meal. Then I'll get comments on my video saying, oh, the studies are showing you can only process 25 to 30 grams. You're just wasting that excess. I don't think that's the case, and there are even studies, supporting that. I think the body's just too smart. The body can figure out how to utilize this protein for an extended period of time, in my opinion, for sure. Okay. Oh, hey, it's Fancy. This is great. It's Fancy. I finally made it to another of your live streams. Jeff from Texas. Hey, Jeff, I appreciate it. Jeff's in my time-restricted eating private Facebook group. It's a free group to join, by the way. If you're on Facebook, look me up, time-restricted eating. You know, I kind of post my meals there all the time when I'm breaking my fast, when I'm eating. I also do it on my Instagram page, Mike Kohler Fitness on Instagram. If you want to check me out there, I do a lot of short little like 1-minute videos. I'm working out on the Instagram page as well too. Whereas the YouTube channel, like you know, it's mostly intermittent fasting, you know, time restricted eating, you know, healthy lifestyle type channel. It's a little more broader, the YouTube channel. Okay, so let's go over like how I would change this schedule if I'm not looking to necessarily lower body fat, if I want to maintain my weight or maybe increase my muscle mass. And that's one of the best thing about the TMAD diet. I think you can use it all different ways. Like for example, if you're doing the OMAD diet, like only eating 1 meal a day, I think that's more of a short-term strategy, because you're not going to be able to, in my opinion, consistently take in enough vitamins and minerals and nutrients. But with 2 meals a day, you can. And what I should have talked about with the last slide was what I always like to bring up is this this kind of hypothesis about protein. A couple of researchers came up with this hypothesis called the protein leverage hypothesis. I'll talk about this in other live streams too, where they talk about how a lot of people who overeat. This is where like scientists and researchers are always trying to figure out like what are one of the main reasons why people overeat. And these people and these researchers came up with a hypothesis saying that most people will keep on eating until they reach their protein requirement, like how much protein their body requires. And if they're eating foods that are relatively low in protein, they're going to keep on eating until they reach their protein requirement. So let's say you're not eating any animal protein. You're not eating chicken, fish, and meat. Let's say you're not eating eggs. Let's say you're getting most of your protein. Say you're a vegetarian. If you're a vegetarian, in my opinion, I think you should supplement your diet with complete protein, like a hemp seed powder, a pea protein powder. You can do it otherwise, but let's say you're eating like low protein type food. You're eating a lot of carbohydrates, and there's protein in everything. You're going to keep on eating until you reach your protein requirement. So typically, you can hit your protein requirement with so many less calories if you're eating animal protein. So keep that in mind. I should have brought that up in the last slide. Okay, so let's talk about 2 meals a day if you want to maintain your weight or if you want to increase your muscle mass. Let's see what Danny's got to say here. How are you getting on your own body fat percentages, Mike? I know you were aiming to get back to single figure. Yeah, it's interesting, Danny. On the live stream I did last week, I mapped out an 8-week plan where I was going to like increase my intensity in the gym, and I was going to go into like cycle my calories, go into a positive energy balance. And because I'm turning 60 this year, I tried to do it last year and I got messed up. I was actually doing pretty good. I think, because I did that 3-day fast. I don't know if you remember, if you follow me, about a month and a half ago, I fasted for 3 days, which definitely lowered my body fat levels. I didn't like the 3rd day of being in a fasted state. It was too challenging, that 3rd day. I don't know if I'll ever do it again. I like more like the 36-hour fast, things like that. I think I'm on track. You know, I kind of hurt myself though, pushing too hard last week in the gym. My elbow started bothering me a little bit, and my knee is my biggest issue, because I can't just squat heavy and do things like that like I used to do, which would always help me lower my body fat. Since I had that knee operation like 15 years ago, I just had such a horrible result with that knee operation. My knee has never felt good ever since, but I'm doing something new, and I'm going to do a video about it this week. I've been doing that knees over toes. You know, there's this young fitness guy, I think he's in his 30s. He wrote these books, and he's getting really popular just in the fitness community on YouTube and in general. He has this philosophy called knees over toes, where you walk backwards, then you start pulling a sled backwards, and then you start doing these exercises where your knee does go beyond your toe. You know, in the fitness community for like decades, people are saying, don't let your knee go over your toe. It shears, you put too much shearing force in your knee, you're gonna hurt your knees. That's why, like, when you squat, people are saying, throw your butt back, don't let your knees go over your toes. And there is something to that, but his philosophy is, you know, you micro progress and you do let your knees go over your toes, and it's kind of strengthens your knee. And I have to say, I've been walking backwards for about 6 weeks now. I literally started with just 100 steps, and now I'm doing about 10-15 minutes a day. Sometimes I do it twice a day while I'm walking backwards. I purchased a sled. I haven't figured out the sled yet. I've only used it twice where I'm going to be pulling a sled backwards. And I have to say, my knee is feeling a little bit better. I kind of tweaked my knee also because even though my knee's messed up, sometimes I'll hold like dumbbells. I'll do like dumbbell squats and things like that. My knee was feeling so good, you know, my brain, I kind of pushed it a little bit too hard and kind of tweaked my knee. But I also have an appointment with another surgeon in a couple of weeks about my knee. But it's interesting. I think I'm on track, Danny. I appreciate you asking. I'm going to really try to make a run for it when I turn 60 to kind of get my body fat levels back down to like below 10%. I think I'm around 12, maybe 11, 12% now. But I like to get, you know, you really see those abs when you get down to about 9%. So that's my goal, to really see the abs really well before I turn 60. So that's why I decided to do this 8-week program a little bit early. Typically, I may do it in the heart of the summer. I started a couple of weeks ago because I wanted to get a jump on it, maybe get a little bit more muscular. And then I was going to go like, you know, really go, maybe go keto, do something really kind of aggressive to get the body fat levels really low. But I'll be talking about it along the way, which is great. Let's see, James. Mike, has there been any study on when you eat high amounts of protein, it can make you sleepy? You know, I don't know if there's any studies on it. If you want, James, I will look for a study after this as well. But it definitely, you know, it's more, like I said, the thermic effect is more digestive effort, you know, when you eat. So some people might say that it could make you sleepy, digesting protein, things like that. When you eat in general, you know, it's a tax on the body, and you have to digest it. And protein is the hardest macronutrient to digest as possible. Hey, Gene is here. Wonderful, Gene. I'm sure to know how you're doing. Gene's here every other week on Sundays as well. I'm sure he's doing great. Let's see, Danny. That's good, Mike. Safety comes first too. Hope the knees get strong. Yeah, I appreciate it, Danny. You know, and Danny is like a really good, like a real professional fitness instructor. I think he's also like an MMA guy or like a martial arts guy, just like my buddy Brian, who's like just incredible with that type of stuff. You know, I'm sure Danny, you and Brian would get along really well. I think Brian's like a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo, Hapkido, all that stuff. He's like a famous guy too, you know, which is really great. Okay, so I lost my track. Okay, right. So we'll go back to maintenance and actually lowering body. What would I do? Okay. So you can definitely have a little bit more flexibility when you're looking to maintain calories or increase in muscle mass. So I don't think you necessarily have to be in that fasted state for that extended period of time. Like if you really love eating breakfast, say like 8 in the morning, you wake up at 6, you know, you fool around for an hour, you meditate, you do whatever you do, you take a little, maybe a fasted walk, and then you get back, you have your breakfast like 2 hours after you wake up, and then you're the type of person who's just busy during the day and you want to skip lunch and then have dinner. I think that can really work well for maintenance, you know, even putting on muscle. I think that's a good schedule. I still will probably prefer you to do a 16-8 or an 18-6, but I think that can really work. But some other things you can do, and this is what I mean by adding that protein shake, and this is what I do. Like when I want to either maintain my calories, not be in a deficit, eating 2 meals a day, or if I want to put on muscle, I'll definitely add a protein shake. And I have a number of videos on it. Like my favorite protein shake is like the celery juice, because 16 ounces of celery juice, only about 35 calories, but you get like a whopping 900, 1,000 milligrams of potassium for only 35 calories. The adequate intake of potassium for the day is 4,700 milligrams. Most people don't get anywhere close. Like for example, I always give the example, a banana, which people consider to be a high potassium food, only 400 milligrams of potassium. So not even in the ballpark, and it's 100 calories. So I love doing celery juice. I like a combination of maybe collagen protein, which is an incomplete protein, it's missing tryptophan. So I'll add either maybe some hemp seed, or maybe I'll add like a whey protein to that. I may even put a little fish oil in there. I may even put a tablespoon of omega-3 fish oil. I like Carlson's or Nordic Naturals, which is like another 130 calories. So say I'm getting another 300 calories. I'll do that. I think that's a great way to put you in maintenance calories, or you know, and add like a half a meal, or to increase your muscle mass for sure. And also, you know, if you're a petite person and you're just looking to increase the amount of protein in your diet, I think that's a great way to do it. And you can consider that a meal. If going back to the fat loss strategy, you can do like a protein shake and just have 1 meal a day, if that puts you in like just a mild calorie deficit. But we're going to break that down. Did I go through all that? Let me see. Did I? If I missed a slide? Oh no, that's the next slide. We're going to talk about calories, which is great. And once again, you always want to prioritize protein. You can do intermittent fasting. You can do time restricted eating. Like for example, there's nothing wrong with doing like 18-6 a couple days and just taking a day off, eating 3 meals a day, going into a positive energy balance. So you can mix these things up. There's so many ways to do it, but the big takeaway is with 2 meals a day, you can take in enough calories for maintenance, and you can take in enough calories to put on muscle. And that's the big takeaway. Whereas when you're doing it for fat loss, you got to really keep an eye on calories. But let's talk about more about that. Let's talk about what is maintenance calories and all that. Let me blow this up. Let's see, more flexibility. Oh, I messed it up here. This is, let's say, hey, Brian's got it. Okay. Have you ever posted a protein shake? Yeah, no, Brian, I did. I have a whole bunch of them. The one I recently did, I'll tell you what I did. It's only like a 1 minute short. I actually have it on TikTok. I got it on Instagram Reels. I got it. You know what I've been doing? I've been doing a nitric oxide enhancing protein shake. And this is what I've been doing now that I'm doing this 8-week program to increase my muscle mass. And this is what I mean. Like nitric oxide is a molecule that's naturally occurring within the body. But unfortunately, when you get older, nitric oxide goes down. But there are certain foods that are automatically high in nitrates. And when you eat these nitrates, for example, beets is an example of it. Arugula is another example. So when you eat beets that are high in nitrates, the body converts them into nitric oxide in a different mechanism. For example, the nitrates, it helps like vasodilate and like it great for blood flow, similar to like arginine, like citrulline. We'll talk about. So I guess I'm getting a little lost here, but let me tell you my exact shake. This is what I do. Okay, so thanks, Gene. Gene's always incredible with this. I really appreciate it, Gene. Thanks for the super chat. Let me first go over the shake, and then I'll come back to this question. So this is what my exact formula is for my pre-workout shake. So I take 6 ounces of beet juice. Now, I did a lot of research on this, but the research is showing that if you're about 150 pounds, you want 400 milligrams of nitrates to get that vasodilation. You need that much. Most of these like beetroot powders and these pre-workout drinks and these pre-workout powders that you use, they, even though it may say like beetroot powder on the supplement, it's not standardized. The average beet is anywhere between 1 to 4% nitrates, and the beetroot powder is the same thing. Very, very few companies standardize the nitrates, and I read all these meta-analyses, all these studies, but I find that I buy Orlando Lake's beet juice, which is I've looked it up. There was one study done where they looked at all the different beet juices, all the different beetroot supplements, and this particular one is really high in nitrates. So for 6 ounces of beet juice, I'm getting well over 400 milligrams of nitrates. The only downside is that it is 75 calories. So an 8-ounce glass will be 100 calories, and I kind of keep an eye on my carbs. But since I'm working out harder now, that's okay for me. So I do 6 ounces of beet juice. Then the rest of it, I do take in about another like 15, 16 ounces of it's a big drink. I mix it twice during the workout. So I use it as a pre-workout and an intra-workout drink. Then I'll also add that 15 ounces of celery juice, which is only 35 calories but super high in potassium, so I'm getting my electrolytes. Then I do 20 grams of collagen protein. I like the collagen protein. First of all, it's unflavored, it dissolves really easy. It's great for your skin, your hair, your nails, but it's also great for your joints and connective tissue. But like I said, unfortunately, collagen is an incomplete protein. It's only missing tryptophan. So it's missing one of the essential amino acids. So besides that 20 grams of collagen, I'll also add at least another 10 grams of a complete protein. So I'll go with either hemp seed. I like hemp seed because you get a little bit of nutrition there too. You get a teeny bit of fiber. I process it really well, and that's a complete protein. So I'm getting my tryptophan there, plus I'm getting more leucine, right? Because leucine is the most important essential amino acid for mTOR, for growth signaling. So I'm upping my leucine, right? So now I got a complete protein with 30 grams of protein, maybe 100 calories of somewhat of a quick digestible carbohydrate like the beet juice, which is also increasing my nitric oxide, and the celery juice, which is a little bit of a slower type carb. And I also add about 4 grams of 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏. Okay, see, 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 is a really popular supplement. It's a non-essential amino acid. It's almost in almost every pre-workout supplement. What 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 does is that it helps the body make arginine, and arginine helps the body make nitric oxide. So it's like it's a different mechanism. And studies have shown that if you just took arginine straight up, it just doesn't work. The body can't absorb it. There's a whole bunch of trademark supplements that you'll see on these pre-workout drinks that does what 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 does. And I like just straight. Some people like to take 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 malate with some malic acid. I think straight citrulline is the way to go. So I'll also put 4 grams of 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 in there, and I got to tell you, I definitely get a pump. You get a great pump from that workout. And then another thing I also might do is, because I also might even throw in a little essential amino acids. Like I'll buy an essential amino acid powder, which is really high in leucine and the branch chain, the BCCs, leucine, isoleucine, and valine. It almost has no calories. I also may throw that in there too, just to make sure I'm just like, pumping it up and just going to have good recovery. And what I'll do is that I'll drink probably half of that, maybe like 20, 30 minutes before I work out. And then I fill it up again. And I have all my formulas in the back of the gym, and I'll drink it as an intra-workout drink. And that's probably my favorite. But that's if I'm not as concerned about calories and I want to increase my muscle mass, hypertrophy, and I'm in somewhat of a positive energy balance. But I know, Brian, if you're not looking like to increase your muscle mass, I know you're really muscular anyway, or just looking like more to be more maintenance and just control your weight, I would probably not do the beetroot juice. I would probably just do the celery juice. And I buy the Starbucks brand, which is the Evolution brand. It's called Celery Glow. I get it at Whole Foods. All the time they're on sale. 2 for like $2 for $7, 2 for $8. They're typically $6. I think they're great. It's 100% celery juice with a little bit of lime in it. And then I would put the protein powder in it. If you can do the collagen, you can do the whey, you can do the hemp, just make sure it's complete protein. If you really want to keep it like low calorie, you can just do the essential amino acid supplement, which is only going to be 10, 20 calories. And you're going to get the amino acid profile of a 30-gram scoop of, say, whey protein, high in leucine, high in valine, high in isoleucine, while only getting 10, 20 calories. That's the advantage of the essential amino acids. You can get like the equivalent of like a 30-gram scoop of whey protein, which would be 100, 120 calories for only 10, 20 calories. So that's another great workout drink is the celery juice, which also has a decent amount of nitrates in it, similar to beet juice, but not as much as beet juice, with a scoop of essential aminos. And then you're talking about 50, 60 calories if you're concerned about calories. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. Another thing, though, I always do too, when I'm in this like growth phase, is that I eat 100 grams of arugula salad every single day. And you're going to see in my pictures, I'm on this like arugula salad kind of like phase, because arugula, it has even more nitrates than beets do. I mean, arugula is incredible. You have 100 grams of arugula, you're probably getting 500-600 milligrams of nitrates, which is amazing. And it really helps control blood pressure. Because Brian, too, my high blood pressure runs in my family. So I find the beet juice, also the arugula, really helps. And this one other thing that I've experimented with a little bit, which is called red spinach extract, which probably has the highest amount of nitrates almost than anything. And it's not really a spinach, it's just like a plant. And it is standardized. I mean, you can get it as a supplement at like 9% nitrates. And the other advantage of that is that it has no oxalates. See, some people say to me, Mike, you're not concerned about the oxalates for kidney stones, and I'm not concerned about it. But if you are eating a lot of beet juice, and you're eating like celery juice, and you're eating a lot of arugula, which does have a good amount of oxalates in it, and say kidney stones runs in your family, you might want to be a little careful with that. And you may want to go with more like the red spinach extract type things. But I'll do another video on protein shakes, Brian, too. But I'll send you links to the few that I have. I have a few on the YouTube channel and on Instagram too. Let's see what Gene got here. So Gene, thanks Gene. I really appreciate the super chat. Okay, I tried to do leg training with squats the other day, but it hurts my knees. Yeah, Gene, it's funny. I don't know if you missed it. I just, because my knee. My knee. I got such an issue with my knee from that operation I had. First of all, when it comes to squats, I probably wouldn't do the traditional like bar on your back squat. I would say, why don't you start with dumbbells in your hands, because you don't have to lean, you can keep your knees in a safer position, in my opinion. Oh, thanks, Brian. I'm so happy you're here. This is like the best, and you're just hanging in there for this whole live stream. I would do like more squats where, like you're saying, you're holding dumbbells, or if you have that hex bar, you know what I mean by the hex bar? I know you don't have that at home. You need to go to a gym where you can just keep your knees in a safer position. Oh, Boris is here too. Whoa, Boris from Munich. This is awesome. That's great, Boris. And thanks for showing up. I think that's safer than doing like traditional barbell squat. Like, I know maybe you don't have a leg press at home. Maybe you can do lunges. It's easier on your knees and kind of like counterbalance. You hit the glutes really good. But I would start doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna do a whole video on that walking backwards. I was just telling people earlier in the live stream, I started walking backwards, just 10-15 minutes a day. I started with 100 steps, and it really helped my knees. I do a bunch of other things for my knees too. I'm gonna do a whole video on it. I just don't want to come across like I'm complaining about an injury I had. And I'm like a fitness trainer, I'm like talking about my bad knees. But I like terminal knee extension. I like those circular articular rotations where you hold your femur, you hold your thigh, and then you rotate your tibia on your femur in circle. I think there's a lot of things you can do. Another kooky thing that I was doing is I do a lot of blood flow restriction training for my knee, where I occlude my limb. I got a couple of videos on the YouTube channel about that, and metabolites build up. So for example, I use the 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 system, where it's a little machine where it cycles the pressure. For example, I put these bands around my legs that are attached to tubes, and it closes off the blood supply in my leg. So when I'm doing like very, very light weights, I can do like really light body weight squats. I can just take a 20-minute walk, and the blood like pooled within my legs. It minimizes venous blood return to the heart, and metabolites build up. So the lactate, the hydrogen, like I can get a decent pump in my legs and get a little bit of a burn in my legs using just like body weight type movements, with my bad knee. So that's something you may want to do. Another thing I do, you may not have this machine at home either. I have one of those really professional, like a physical therapist would have, muscle stim, Russian stim machines. Or sometimes I occlude my leg, with those bands. I should do some videos on this. And then I use Russian stim while the leg is being occluded, so I get an amazing burn in my quad, with the stim machine, with the metabolites building up. So I would do it, but Gene, I definitely would. Don't fall, but I would like to see you maybe start walking backwards, just maybe 5-10 minutes a day. I think it really help you with your knees. And don't feel like you have to squat. There's so many other things you can do to develop your legs. Even floor work is a great thing to do, for the legs. If you want me to do some videos on it, I definitely will. Let's see. I'm back. Oh, back to 265. That's like 10 pounds less, right? This morning, but now I take 800 calories a day, 130. I think that's great, Gene. I'm glad you're back on track. Fantastic. I think that's great, and I think it's great. Perfect. 130 grams of protein, good too. So you're doing great. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see. What is your opinion on athletic teenagers using muscle milk? Useful, detrimental? No, I think muscle milk. I can't say I haven't taken muscle milk in a long time. I'm assuming I see it in the stores. Like I go to like a Walgreens. I see it on the shelves there. I'm assuming it's a whey protein. I don't know if a whey protein meaning since it's muscle milk, that a whey meaning is it coming from dairy. I don't know if it's a concentrate or an isolate. I personally like a whey protein isolate. And what I mean by isolate, similar to like collagen that's hydrolyzed, what I mean by isolate is that everything else is stripped out of it, like the fat, the carbohydrates. So you're just getting the amino acid profile of proteins of a dairy, which is really high in leucine, which is really great. I think muscle milk is more of a concentrate, meaning that you're not really just getting the whey, you're getting the casein, which is more of a slow digesting type protein, and you might be getting a little bit more fat and getting some carbohydrates in it. It really depends on how much it costs. I don't think it's a waste, because if you're a teenager, I think it's okay. Check with your parents or your doctor. I don't want to, get you in trouble, with anyone. I think it's okay if you're working out and you're an athlete, to take in a little bit more protein with the protein shake. I think it's fine, but I'd probably rather you do a whey protein isolate. And there are some good ones. With one brand, I like Killer John's is a real good brand of a whey protein isolate. There's a lot of good ones out there. Even a hemp seed protein. Just make sure it's a complete protein. And I think you can eat, don't go crazy with it and start like doing 100 grams. Do like a 25. I think you can add 25, 30 grams to your diet. If you're a really athletic guy, which I think is fine. Let's see. All right, so let's go. So where did we leave off here? Okay, so I think we got this, right? Did we go over? Let me see if we went over the calories, the maintenance calorie, because that was kind of important. I think this is how I messed this up, because I kind of skipped ahead. Let me show you this here. I think it's my slide number 8. Here, this is what I want to go over. This is another thing people always ask me constantly too. Like, Mike, what do you mean by maintenance calories? Like, what do you mean by being in a calorie deficit? So I want to give you more of an example. First of all the meal plans we're talking about today, it's a whole food diet, no processed foods, obviously, no junk, no garbage, no cookies, no cakes. Whole natural food. That's the way to go. I mean, I'm more of a low carb, adequate amount of protein. I get my fat from the whole natural foods I'm eating, and most of my calories do come from fat. But as long as you're eating whole natural foods, you can have a lot of variance there. Let's see what Gene says here. I'm really considering joining a gym. There are many leg exercise machines over there that won't hurt my knees. No, I agree, Gene. If you want to spend the money, and just socially, if you like the environment of being in a gym, I think it's wonderful. Just the leg press. I mean, there's so many different machines you can use in the gym. I would consider it for sure. Even just walking on the treadmill. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to be around people. And it seems like COVID now is settling down. So I think it would be a great thing for you to do. That sounds great. Okay. So let's go. So for fat loss, this is what I mean. When you go into a calorie deficit, this is a simple formula that I like to use. Okay. You take your body weight. Let's say you're 170 pounds, right? You times it by 10 or 11. Let's just times it by 10. So if you're 170 pounds, I think a pretty good and somewhat aggressive calorie deficit would be 1,700 calories. Or if you go by 11, what's that? You're at 1,900 calories. Let's say, hey, Mike. So we got, okay. I take meds in the morning, so how can I tweak TMAD? You take meds in the morning, meaning that now this. I guess it depends on. You're supposed to take your medicine with food. If you're supposed to take your medicine with food, I would put you on more the ideal 2 meal a day program where you wait an hour or so after you wake up in the morning. You have your breakfast. Say you have your breakfast at, you're waking up at 7, you're having your breakfast at say 10 or 6, you're having your breakfast at like 9. You take your meds, and then you just have like a late lunch, type of a thing, and be done eating, maybe at 4 or 5 o'clock, and try to do like a 16-hour fast. I think that would be ideal. Or depending upon what your goals are, if you're just looking to maintain your calories, you're not as concerned about being in a fasted state for an extended period of time, you can just have your breakfast and then just have dinner and then try to fast during the day. So maybe you're getting like a nice 10-hour fast during the day, you're still getting maybe 12 hours maybe over the night, and you're just, you're not constantly spiking insulin. You're just giving yourself 2 insulin spikes for the day. So you can do really well with that, I think. I think that's a great way to do it. Okay, so let's go back to maintenance. So let's say you're that 170-pound guy. You want to lower your body fat or gal, right? You times your weight by 10, that's 1,700 calories, or 11, 1,900 calories. I think that's a great calorie deficit to be in. I mean, you could go online and, enter all, figure out your activity level and all this stuff. You can do it that way too, and that probably will be more accurate. But I think this is such a simple formula. This is a great way to start. If it doesn't work, you can adjust. But it's so simple, and I kind of like that. And I kind of like using MyFitnessPal, if you're going to enter all your foods. But like I said, the main thing, though, when it comes to doing these 2 meal a day diet and these fasting diets, that you can kind of do this without really looking up your calories. But people ask me about this all the time, so I wanted to cover it. So 10, 11 times your body weight. And then what is maintenance? Hard to know for sure. So, for example, like on a day like my son, when he's running 15 miles just on like a normal training day, obviously his maintenance calories would be much higher than on a day when he's taking a day off and not running, right? So, but my general rule is when it comes to maintenance calories is you take your body weight, you times it by 10 or 11, then you add 500 calories or you add like 750, and that, in my opinion, at least for me, and we're working with so many people over these like 30, 40 years doing this, that's pretty much maintenance calories. So let's say you're a 170-pound guy, you times your weight by 10, you're at 1,700 calories, then you add 750, what's that? Like you're at 2,600 calories. That's probably your maintenance. Obviously, if you're running marathons, it's going to be much higher. Or if you're like sitting on the couch, it's going to be much lower, right? But that's a general rule that I like to go by when people ask me about what maintenance calories is and what is a calorie deficit. And then another key thing which I talked about before is that's so important in my opinion, to cycle your calories. Like some days eat more, other days eat less. This is what keeps your metabolism up. Like I said, if you're always constantly in a calorie restricted state, eventually you're going to hit a weight loss plateau. Your metabolism is going to slow down. But some days, like so you go maintenance calories, and then other days you go calorie deficit. That's the key. That's why bodybuilders and physique athletes do so well, is they're always cycling their calories. And also, the other reason why they do well is they just ignore hunger. Like if they're preparing for a contest or something, they're miserable and this is what I'm doing. They just ignore like signals. But most of them you'll see, like most like physique athletes or bodybuilders, either they're in maintenance or they may be in a positive energy balance to put on muscle, and they break things up. They go from maintenance calories to deficit to positive energy balance. They're always mixing it up. And that's the key that I find a lot of like typical people who try to lose weight can't get their head around. Like you don't always have to be in a calorie deficit, right? You have to go to maintenance. It's okay also to go positive energy balance from time to time, then go to calorie deficit. You got to mix it up. You can be in a calorie deficit for a month, no problem. Like what Gene's doing, you can be in a pretty aggressive calorie deficit for a month or so, but then you got to take a diet break. You got to up your calories to maintenance for a week or two. You might gain a little weight, but it's good. It's going to be good for your metabolism. So that's what happened with Gene. He lost a good amount of weight, went on a maintenance program for a couple of weeks, gained some weight back, was a little concerned, but we talked about it. It didn't seem like he gained body fat, because his pants, his buckles, his pants size seemed the same. He probably maybe even put on muscle going to maintenance, and now he's back on track on a calorie deficit again. I think that's the ideal way of doing it. And you can do that either weeks on end. Like for example, you can do time restricted eating 2 meals a day, like 18-6, be in a calorie deficit for a month, and then take a week off. Or you can do it more intermittently, whereas one day you're doing 18-6, 2 meals a day. The next day, maybe you're going to maintenance calories, doing 2.5 meals, right? Then you do 18-6 for 2 days, being in a calorie deficit. I mean, you can mix it up, the calorie cycling that way too. There's no concrete way of doing it. Both ways work. I kind of like to do in groups. Like now I'm doing this 8-week thing where I'm going to be a positive energy balance. Then I'm going to go into like probably a little bit more of a calorie deficit to get really lean for my 60th birthday. But there are also times too when I'm more instinctive and I just play it by ear and keep on mixing it up. Just the takeaway from this slide is cycle your calories. Go from a calorie deficit to calorie maintenance, and even a positive energy balance from time to time if you're looking to put on muscle. And it's good for just long-term weight loss. You can reach any of your goals using these concepts. And then I think I talked about this earlier. I kind of jumped ahead where so important to prioritize protein. Like I said, my formula is 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight. What have you. You don't necessarily have to track your calories either. That's another big thing. See, I'm so, I've been doing this forever. And I've been looking up. There were times when I looked up all my food for weeks on end. And I just know, I can look at a banana. I know it's 100 calories. I know an apple's 80 calories. I know a 4-ounce piece of chicken, because I've been doing it so long. And I know people don't like to count calories. What I generally recommend is at least one time in your life, use MyFitnessPal, or use Chronometer is another good one. Track your calories, track your proteins, track your carbs. You should be able to look at your plate of food and have a rough idea within a few hundred calories how many calories it is. And once you kind of have that, then you could be so much more instinctive with these intermittent fasting strategies. You can just kind of go by portion control. My rule is always make sure you're getting enough protein. 2 fists of protein, going to be about 8 ounces, 50 grams of protein. So always eat enough protein. That's key. And then control your weight, in my opinion, by how many carbs and fat you're kind of eating. See, me, when it comes to fat, I think you should get your fat from just the whole natural food you're eating. When you're eating salmon, when you're eating sardines, when you're eating avocado, when you're eating whole eggs, right? When you're using extra virgin olive oil on your salads, when you're just adding a little EVO when you're sauteing your vegetables. That's where your fat's going to come from. My big thing is I think you should control your weight with how many carbs you're eating. And my general rule is if you're 150 pounds or less, try to stay about 100 grams of carbs, 400 calories. And if you're a bigger guy or gal, 150 grams, 200 grams, less carbs than what you're eating right now is the rule when you want to lose weight. But there's no concrete rule. I also think you can just ignore all that, eat a whole natural food diet, 2 meals a day, you're going to do great. You're going to start losing weight for sure. Some days a little bit eat more, some days eat a little bit less. And this is the other, I'm driving home this point. Also, I also listen to an incredible podcast. I listened to it 3 times already because I do all this walking. Not a doctor, he's a PhD. He's a professor at Stanford. Andrew Huberman, Huberman Labs. I think is the best podcast there is. I used to love Peter T, and I still do like his podcast, The Drive. I think Andrew Huberman is better. He did like a 2 hour, almost 3 hour, 2 hour and 45-minute podcast on time-restricted eating. All the stuff I'm talking about. I have to say, it's interesting because he takes his podcasts. I listen on iTunes, and he always does a video of it. And one person left a comment on the video. You know, this 2.5 hour podcast gave me more information than these guys on YouTube who have 100 videos on intermittent fasting. So it's funny. I read that comment, and then I commented saying that, you know, I'm actually one of those guys who has over 100 videos on intermittent fasting on my channel. And I have to say, I love this podcast. It is an amazing podcast. But then I felt good because a number of people commented on my comments saying that, oh, Mike, I checked out your channel. You know, you really have some good content. So it felt good. No one gave me a bad response to me leaving that comment, which is great. But if you want to listen to one, you know, I'll link a link to that to the YouTube podcast underneath this when I'm done. If you have like 2.5 hours, listen to it. All the stuff I'm talking about, he's right on the mark. He goes into circadian rhythm. When is the best times? Everything I'm talking about. And since he's a professor, he presents it in a way where you're going to understand it. Even though he gets somewhat technical, he really breaks it down. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. New Salvo, I appreciate it, John. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to learning more. Coach Mike. Thanks a lot, John. I really appreciate it. That's great. So like I said, the big takeaway, and I've mentioned it a few times in this presentation, wait an hour before you wake up. Make sure you eat a minimum of 2 hours before you go to sleep, and you really can't go wrong eating 2 meals a day. You can keep it that simple. If you want the simplest way to do it, no processed foods, right? Eat 2 meals a day, wait an hour before after you wake up, 2 hours before you go to sleep, and you're going to do great. Let's keep it that simple. Okay, so now let's go over, this is like the fun part. Let's go over a whole bunch of meals. So I wanted to show you how I structure, my 2 meals a day. Let's see what Jeff's got here. Okay. Speaking of podcasts, this is the Fitness Contrarian going to another episode. I listen. Yeah, it's funny. I have a podcast called Fitness Contrarian. Unfortunately, I haven't been keeping up with it anywhere near as much as I want. I maybe did 6 or 7 episodes. I used to have a website called the Fitness Contrarian that was really popular about 8-9 years ago. I was getting like 4,000-5,000 hits a day. I was doing a little bit of affiliate marketing on that site, meaning I was selling some other people's like fitness programs, and then all of a sudden I had like a weird thing happen, like malware attacked my website. I lost control. I could not get into the back end of that website for 2 years. I had all these experts, and it just fell apart. This is when I guess like malware and all that stuff was really a problem back then. So I kind of got rid of it. But that name, Fitness Contrarian, I always love because the whole concept of Fitness Contrarian is like intermittent fasting is contrarian, right? Most people, you talk to the average person, even though intermittent fasting is popular, you talk about the average person you meet and you tell them that, you're not going to eat a meal. They look at you like you're crazy. What do you mean? Fasting? You're going to starve and you're not going to eat breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So that was the gist of the of that website and also of the Fitness Contrarian podcast. It's just hard for me to find time to make those podcasts. Sometimes I recorded some of those when I was doing my 2-hour walks on Sunday. I would like wear a headphone and do a podcast. But I feel like I'm always trying to do too much. I have this little gym in Mount Kisco that I'm trying to I'm running this gym, right? I'm training people. Every time I do a video on YouTube, it may seem like a little nothing, a 5-10 minute video. It takes me 10 hours to do that video. Because the editing of the video and just to get a thumbnail so people go watch, it's just so much work. I feel like I kind of slacked off on the podcast. Plus, I'm really excited about this. I'm starting a supplement company which I'm really excited about. I've been doing an insane amount of work on that over the last like couple of months. I just went to the a big trade show, a supply side supplement trade show. I think I'm going to start out with just, even one of my clients is thinking about maybe helping me along with it. I think I'm going to start out with an essential amino acid supplement, like I always talk about these, because I think it's still relatively a new thing. Most people think all you need is the branched chain aminos, which are 3 of the essential, whereas all the new research is showing you really need all 9 essential amino acids for protein synthesis and all that. So I think I'm going to do essential amino acids. I think I'm going to come out with a collagen protein powder, a plain collagen protein powder. And I may do one more. I might even do a nitric oxide enhancer with some of the things I'm talking about, where everything's standardized. Just that it's a big investment. I have to see. So I've been trying to do too much. Like literally, unfortunately, if you've been following, I think Krill even mentioned that I haven't been uploading that much to the YouTube channel. I'll never miss these lives. I do these every other Sunday at 9. And even this live takes me 2 hours to prepare all the slides for. So, but I'm going to try to get back on the podcast if I can. Maybe do one every couple of weeks. And I was thinking about doing the video podcast in the future instead. Just like talking as opposed to walking and doing it. And, I want to get back to doing at least 2 videos for the YouTube every week. And I'm also, if you follow me on Amazon, I became an Amazon influencer. So I've been doing these lives on Amazon where I talk about different supplements and different things, and then you can buy the supplements, and then the video I make like a small commission, like 2%. But it's fun. I like doing it. Like I feel like I'm losing people because I'm rambling. Okay. Let's go over an example. Like this is typically what I would consider to be like the perfect meal to break a fast. This is what I ate last week. After I had my pre-workout shake and my intra-workout shake, this was my first meal, which this is a nice 12 ounces of like chicken, my 100 grams of arugula, some strawberries. I don't know if you can see underneath here, I have an avocado. See, my general rule is first I like to pick my protein, a good source of protein. Then I like to have a minimum of 2 different colored vegetables or fruits for different vitamins, different minerals, different nutrients, like a rainbow color of vegetables. So we got the green arugula, we got the red and the fiber with the strawberries, and then we got the avocado, which is high in fiber, high in potassium. This is a perfect meal. And I also got a good amount of extra virgin olive oil and balsamic vinegar. See, balsamic vinegar is great because similar to apple cider vinegar, balsamic vinegar has acidic acid in it. And acidic acid slows down digestion and helps control blood sugar post-meal, which is really great. So sometimes I also do a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, but if I know I'm going to be having balsamic vinegar in my meal, it's almost like it clears glucose. It's just like cinnamon clears glucose, apple cider vinegar, all types of vinegar clears glucose. Berberine, which is another great supplement you take. Like if I'm going to overeat, it's funny, I overate last night. One of the first times, unfortunately I've been leading a very isolated life during this COVID thing. I'm just starting to come out of it now. The first time I went out to dinner in 2 years was actually last night. Me and my wife went out, and so if I know I'm going to overeat, I'll take 2 berberine capsules before the meal, which helps control blood sugar, which is great. Then okay. Are there any downsides to using aluminum spray externally for leg muscle clearance? To be truthful, I've never even heard of that. I really don't know. Once again, I'm learning from all you guys and gals. I'll Google that after this. I'm not even familiar with it. I'm not sure. Sorry. Okay. Let me give you another example of another meal we got here. Let me close that one out though. Okay, let's get rid of this one. How do I close that? Okay, this is another one of my salad. I'm on the salad mode. So for example, see how I mixed it up? Same concept. Prioritize the protein. So I have my sardines. I love sardines, as all you guys know who follow me. Sardines like the perfect food. High in omega-3s, high in the good fats. Plus you get the skin and you get the bone for the calcium and the connective tissue. I eat sardines almost every single day. Love the sardines. Actually, there's an added thing that I add in addition to this, because a can of sardines is about 26 grams of protein. I wanted more protein with this meal. Actually, I took a picture of it and posted it on Instagram. I also ate a no-cow protein bar with this meal to increase my protein. Those no-cow protein bars have 21 grams of protein, 14 grams of fiber. It's a no-cow, meaning that it has no dairy. So they give you pea protein and brown rice protein, which are complete protein. So I had 26 grams of protein from the sardines, plus I got another 21 grams of protein from that protein bar. But I got my strawberries. I've been into oranges lately. I don't know. They've been incredible. So I've been eating oranges, and we got the avocado again and arugula. So that's another like great meal idea. Let's see what we got. This one's kind of just a fun one, kind of maybe a little on the keto. Let's see what Gene's got. There's a creatine monohydrate storage here in Montreal. Is it the same elsewhere? Yeah, shortage. Yes, you cannot get. It's amazing. 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏, which is the best creatine by far. That's what all the studies are done from. That's the best one come from Germany. It's interesting because I've been doing so much research for the supplement company. I wanted to come out with a 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏, which is that trademark, the best creatine in tablet form, because I like tablets. Like the general dose for creatine is like 5 grams a day, which I don't think you need to take that much, especially if you're a gal or you're small. I think you can get away with. I've taken like 800 milligrams. You know, I've taken like just 2 grams a day and gotten really good results. Plus, cognitively, there's been a lot of shows now that it's good for your brain. I know Dr. Huberman in that podcast, he talked about, in a different podcast, that guy, Andrew Huberman, that's a Stanford professor, he takes 5 grams of creatine every single day. But yeah, Gene, I know that's an issue. I know. I think, I mean, not unfortunately, but most of the supplements you're taking are sourced from China. It's just, that's the industry. Now, if you're getting it sourced from China, just a good creatine monohydrate that's been third-party tested and you know it's pure, there's nothing in it, it's really just as good as that, you know, that creatine monohydrate from Germany, the 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏. So just make sure whatever brand you buy is just been tested and you know it's pure, you know it's a clean source. But you don't really have to get the most expensive one, the best one from, you know, from Germany. But I have to say, all the suppliers that I've spoken to said, Mike, you can't even get creatine now. Like if you want to come up with a supplement, 2024. Is when you can probably get it in a year and a half. So interesting. So this is another kind of a cute meal that I like. You know, I got my eggs here. I got a little bacon, which I have now and then as a treat. Avocado, tomatoes. This is just whole natural food eating. Really healthy. You know, all different colors, which is great. Let me pick another one here. I want to give you an idea of what I eat in a restaurant. Actually, this was a meal that I had in the Hamptons over the summer. You know, like kind of like that beach community out on Long Island in New York. And this is 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏, probably my favorite restaurant out there. And it's not really an expensive place, as you know. You see, it's just a paper plate. But look at this. They give you like 2 pounds of flounder. It's like unreal. I love it. A little string beans, you know, potatoes. I find that when you go to a restaurant, you can't go wrong getting fish. You just can't go wrong. You know, try not to get it fried. You can. You know, this is what I consider to be like perfect eating. Some people say, oh, I like potatoes. But hey, it's okay to have carbs now and then. This is a meal my wife made a couple of weeks ago. I think this is Arctic chard. Once again, tomatoes. I like tomatoes, you know, for the 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏. I was like pronouncing that right. You know that, you know, it's good for your prostate. You know, older guys like me like are concerned about that. You know, a little tomato and onion, asparagus, you know, which is great. See, 2 different colored vegetables, nice big piece of protein. This is a tremendous plate. These are Italian plates from 𝙒𝘀𝙏𝑝𝑟. This is probably a minimum of 12 ounces of protein right here, maybe even more. So I'm getting like 75 grams of protein, you know, right there, you know, which is great. This is how you should eat. You can't go wrong eating like this. Let's see what we got. I want to give you like a steak example. This is like 2 big pieces of filet mignon. I think about a pound, 100 grams of protein right here. Once again, my arugula salad with avocado and orange. You know, this is how you got to eat. You can't go wrong. And I'll just end with another one here, just another chicken. No, I think that's one I started with. I thought I had one more here. Let me see what we got. I think I got another salmon one. I want to show you one. Yeah, this is I love this meal too. Salmon steak, blackened, beets, right? High in those nitrates, tomato, arugula salad. You know, this is how I eat like every single day. Do we have one more? That's it. All right, there we go. All right, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this. Any other questions? So what do you think about the 2 meal a day diet? You're going to give it a try? I know some of you guys have been doing it already. We've been going like an hour, 28 minutes. I appreciate everyone tuning in. But any questions? I know there's a little bit of delay, so I want to answer any question. It could be any question: fitness, health, weight loss, whatever you got. It's funny. I'm looking at me in my shirt now. I didn't realize how wrinkled this shirt is. A little wrinkled. Let's see. Johnny got a question here. Okay, I do 23-hour fast with is that you mean a 1 hour eating window to eat, also working out 2 hours before a meal? Am I doing, okay, let me make sure I got that. Okay, so you're doing you're an OMAD guy, you're fasting for 24 hours, and then you have a 1 hour eating window, 2 hours before the meal. I think that's a great way to do it, especially if you're doing OMAD, because it's gonna like fuel your workout. See, most people I find have a hard time doing that, especially if you're working in the morning, because most people will do the OMAD meal like in the afternoon or in the evening. John, I think that's ideal. I think it's ideal. The only thing like I would say is that I do think though it's probably a good short-term strategy. Meaning that long term, because you're probably taking in what, even if you have 100 grams of protein, depends how big you are, if that's enough, right? It's also it's hard, in my opinion, long term, only eating one meal a day for vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. It is. I think it's a good thing to do for a few weeks, maybe even a month or two. I think it's a great thing to do if you want to do like an alternate day fast, do it like an OMAD almost every other day, or do it maybe you're just doing it a few days a week until you reach your goal. But I think that's a great way to do it. I just would not do it like long term indefinitely. I think you're gonna run into trouble. Let's see what Jeff's got to say here. Okay, I get done with tennis sometimes as late as 9 p.m. Is it better to eat something after to get protein, or wait until the next day because it's too, I think it's kind of too late for bedtime. But I think that's when I would probably do this. That's when, if you want to, just do like an essential amino acid supplement. Not that I'm pushing these essential aminos, but I think it's a good thing to do, because you can take in, like, you take a scoop of this powder. Sometimes it's sweetened with monk fruit or stevia, which has no calories. And it's only going to be like 10, 15 calories. And you're going to get the leucine. It's like eating like 30 grams of protein for like no calories. You can kind of get the best of both worlds by doing that. You can kind of get the protein to help you recover from that, hard game of tennis that you played. You're going to get a teeny bit of a spike in insulin, but you're going to flush that out with 10, 15 calories. Plus, you're going to get the protein synthesis. That's almost a great thing. You can even just do 1 scoop of whey protein powder, which is less expensive than the essential aminos. And hopefully, you're still going to go to sleep at like 11 o'clock. You kind of have a couple of hours before you go to sleep. I probably would do something like that. Maybe taking a little protein. Plus, it's going to curb your appetite as well, too. But I wouldn't eat a big meal. Nothing like that afterwards. Let's see what Danny's got. Oh, brilliant, Mike. Oh, thanks, Dan. Love the post. Can't tune in every time, but I'll try my best. Oh, I appreciate it, Danny. I really appreciate it. Thanks. I know you have a relatively young baby. I know you had a baby not too long ago. I don't know if is your baby 1 yet. I mean, probably less than 1. I don't even, or close, right? Let's see, Gene said. Gene, can I gain muscle if I take 0.9 grams of protein for a lean body weight? Even if, Gene, I would say it's hard to say. I would say definitely it's a little more of a maintaining your muscle. It's really hard to say. 800 calories is low. I would hope that you can maintain the muscle you have while only eating 800 calories a day. Because I know you're 265, and I know I say this every time we go live. I don't want to throw you off because I think you're doing so well, but I really don't think you have to go as low as 800. I mean, you can definitely go 1200, and I think you would do just as good, and maybe have a little bit of a better chance to maintain your muscle mass. 1200 is still pretty aggressive calorie restriction for a guy 265. I mean, I don't think you have to go 8, but you're doing so good, I don't want to mess you up. If you feel like in another way of, I guess, unless you're being underwater weight or have some sophisticated equipment to measure your body fat, the other best indicator to see whether you're losing muscle or not is just your strength in the gym. And I know you're working out all the time. Like, if you feel like you're not getting weaker and you're consistently losing body fat, I'm sure you're maintaining your muscle mass. But all of a sudden, and I've seen this happen to numerous clients of mine in the gym who they were aggressively restricting calories and losing weight, all of a sudden they just start getting weaker. Like they used to bench 200 pounds 10 times, now they just can't do it anymore. They're doing 8 reps and they're just tired, they're not sleeping well. I mean, I would look for things like that where you're losing strength in the gym, right? You're not sleeping well, and you just generally feel like lackluster, no energy. That more than maybe trying to figure out how much body fat, how much muscle mass you're losing. But it's hard. Okay. 20% body fat down to 10%. What's a realistic time frame for doing that? But I mean, you're such a professional, Danny. You know, I 3 months, let's say that. Let's go on like a 12-week cycle. I think you can probably do something like that. You could. You know, it depends how aggressive. It depends how aggressive you want to be and everything. I know you're really active. I think 12 weeks is a nice cycle. I like to work in like 8-week cycles and see, but I think 12 weeks you can do it. I think that's a good realistic, maybe even a little bit less. I think it's pretty realistic. Okay, say Brian, I eat 2 p.m., 10 p.m. We're doing a 36-hour fast now and then. Yes, I think it would, Brian. I do it all the time. I think, okay, a 36-hour fast is a classic alternate day fasting. I think it would. The only thing with Brian, I would want you to, I don't know what time you're going to sleep, and at that 10 p.m. meal, I would want you to eat a little bit early if you can. You know, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, so you're doing like a 16-8, 2-10. I'd rather you maybe do an 18-6 if you can. Like 2-8, you know, be done eating by 8 p.m. if you can. And I don't know what your schedule is. I know you have some time now, but I know you're always busy and you're doing you got so much going on. I'd rather you eat a little bit earlier for sure, unless you really are like waking up late, much later, and you're staying up to like midnight and you're going to sleep at midnight or something like that. But it kind of also throws like what I talked about with circadian rhythm, like that's. His book is great, Dr. Panda's book, The Circadian Code. He'll say there are certain DNA and genes and markers and hormones that when you're eating late at night, back to that other slide, like where's that other slide I had here? See, all the stuff I talked about here of like C-reactive protein, A1C, insulin, glucose, LDL, HDL. Unfortunately, when you're eating late at night, all those things get out of whack. They do. It's almost like being like a night shift worker. Yes, I think you can correct it to some degree doing those 36-hour fasts, no question about it. It would definitely help. But I wouldn't even do those too frequently either. But I would much rather you do 2 o'clock, done at 8, or even 12 o'clock, have lunch at 12 if you want to do 16-8 instead of 18-6, and have your last meal at 8 o'clock if you can. I think it would be good. I think you'll sleep better too. I'm sure you're sleeping good, but you know, I think you'll sleep. I think it would be better all around for you, for sure, to be done with eating at like 8 o'clock if you can. You know, especially if you have drinking a little wine or something like that. You know, you can drink, you can be done at 8, and you can drink like herbal teas and you know, you don't want coffee, but decaf coffee. You can have I love hibiscus tea. You can do things like that. You know, just to satisfy yourself. You know, later at night. Let's see. You're right. 1 year old and 1 to 2 year old. Dan, I know you got a lot going on. I saw pictures I think on Facebook. They look incredible. The kids. That was the best time of my life. And there's no question about when my kids were little. I absolutely loved every minute of it. I had twins, so it was a little bit survival mode for the first year or two. But I just love it. When they left the house for school, it was killing because I still feel it. I think they're gonna be home this summer, which I'm so happy about, though, which is great. Can you post a link again to what you recommend for the essential amino? Yes, I definitely will. A couple of ones I like. It's called Kion, Kion, Ben Greenfeld's brand. His is somewhat expensive though. It's like $45 for a month. There's another brand on sale right now called Vegun, Vegun. I'll post a link. It's like giving it away. I just bought a couple of them. They're like $14.99, like $15. It's reduced. It's interesting because I just bought that particular brand. It tastes okay. I bought the I think the lemonade grape, 6.9 grams of essential amino acid, which is a decent amount. That'll give you over 2,000 milligrams of leucine. It's that would typically sell for $1 a serving. He has 25 servings there. That typically would sell for $25, $30, and it also has the Amino 9 formula, which that's the one I'm thinking about using in my supplement. Amino 9 is actually a company called Compound Solutions. I think they're based in California, where they make these trademark supplements. Like a lot of times when you look at the back of a supplement company, a supplement label, and you see like a little symbol, like a trademark or that R, these supplement manufacturers are buying trademark ingredients from particular labs that put out really good supplements, and they're a little bit more expensive. And actually, but this particular one, Vegun Nutrition, it's like vegetarian based, because those essential aminos are all vegetarian based. I think I got one from Amazon, and I looked at the expiration date, and it said like December 2022, like this year, and they generally have a 2-year shelf life. So I think they're looking to get rid of this inventory. That's why they're like giving it away for $14.99. I ordered like 3 of them. I got a whole bunch of them, so I'm covered for a while for myself. And I just want to make sure that there's Amino 9, because if I use that one in my supplement, that it doesn't upset my stomach, and I have had no issues with it so far. So if you want to get a bargain, look up Vegun 9, but I'll put a link. You can also go to my my Amazon shop. Do I have it listed? I think I have it listed underneath all my videos now. It's like 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏 shop, you know, Amazon. I'll put a link, because you can go to my Amazon page, 𝙒𝘏𝙏𝙏. I have all these things listed, so you can easily, and I make a small commission, like 2%. I'll make like 50 cents if you buy it through me, something like that, or maybe 25 cents. I don't even know. Let's see. 12 weeks. Yeah, I like working in 8 to 12 week cycles, and then you can make adjustments. Sometimes even 8. See, what I'm doing is like I said, I'm doing this 8-week cycle now. I'm trying to put on muscle. Then I'm really going to do like another 8-week cycle, because my birthday's the end of August, to really try to get lean, to get down to that 9% or so. So I think 12 weeks is a nice way of doing it. Okay. So you gain muscle. So to gain muscle, what's better, being in a calorie surplus? I think surplus is probably better, but you always risk the chance of putting on a little bit of body fat, unfortunately. But I think you can do it in maintenance for sure. You definitely can. But for you, Gene, maintenance is probably, you know, upwards of those, you know, maintenance for you could be 2,500 calories, you know, or something like that. You know, it's kind of hard to say, but it depends on how active you are. So if you, you know, in your case, I would try to, you know, keep working out. I don't know if I would go as low as 800. I would maybe go to like 12, and just see how your strength is, see how you're sleeping, and see how your energy level is. And if you're just consistently losing and you're able to work out pretty good. You know, unfortunately, I think since you've been somewhat overweight for a while now, you know, you may have some different other things going on with your metabolism and maybe slightly insulin resistance and this and that. So I understand you wanted to be aggressive and keeping the calories low. But I would say yes, you can. In my opinion, you can put on muscle at maintenance. You definitely can put it on, obviously in a calorie surplus, but you might put on a little bit of fat if you overdo it, right? And can you put on muscle if you're in a calorie deficit? I say one of the biggest indicators of that is if you've been, like, say you're a person who's never worked out, or you haven't worked out in a decade, and then you aggressively restrict calories and you start working out. The working out is so new to you that you may get a good response. You know, like if you haven't lifted weights in 20 years, or you never lifted weights in your life, and then you start lifting weights even though you're in a calorie deficit, you probably can, if you're a person like that, like put on muscle at the same time you're in a calorie deficit. But for somebody, if you've been working out for a while, like a guy like me who's been working out for 40 years, it's very hard for me to be in a calorie deficit and put on muscle at the same time. I mean, I think I may have been able to do it, you know, but you got to get everything right. But I definitely can do it at maintenance. I think most people can do it at maintenance. So if you've been working out for a long time, it would be easier for you to be at maintenance as opposed to a calorie deficit to put on muscle and maintain your muscle for sure, I think. All right, guys. So any other questions before I go? Hour and 42 minutes. This is great. So I'm so excited everyone showed up. I'm so excited Brian showed up. This is great too. I haven't seen Brian in a few years now. I haven't seen my brother. Oh my God, Rob, I haven't seen him in maybe 6 months or maybe longer, which is unbelievable. All right, guys. So I'm gonna rock. I'm gonna go take my fasted 2-hour walk. I'm gonna drink a nice big bottle of Pellegrino. So I really appreciate everyone showing up for this. I mean, once again, next Sunday, 11 o'clock, I'll be here again. We'll do this again. If you have any topics you want me to cover next Sunday, let me know. I'm going to try to get a few videos out this week about on YouTube. I'm going to do a whole video on that walking backwards program. I'm going to map out exactly how I did it. I find it kind of interesting. But all right, well, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. Take care. Hope everyone had a good Easter, too. I forgot to say that.